Experience a membership that backs what you're building with American Express Business Platinum. Enjoy complimentary access to the American Express Global Lounge Collection and a welcome offer of 200,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
Welcome back to Marvelous Disney, the podcast that discusses the most recent doings at one of the more dynamic divisions at the Walt Disney Company, which is, of course, Marvel Entertainment. This is entertainment writer Jim Hill, and my co-host, the dynamic Dan Graney, and I are recording this week's episode on Sunday, October 11th, 2025. How are we doing tonight, Dan?
Doing well, Jim. It's been a lot of exciting last-minute stuff happening, so we were scrambling.
Yes, we were. And the reason Dan mentions that is that a lot of that news is coming out of the 2025 edition of New York Comic Con, which actually just came to a close a couple hours ago. Checked at the official website before we get started here tonight, Dan, and they were shooing the last of the event attendees out the door at the Javits at 5 p.m. East Coast time. And which brings me to my first question for you tonight. Have you ever been to the Jacob Javits Center down in New York?
I have not.
Oh, well.
But I've heard about it.
Yes. Well, you've lived a good life, Dan, because it is an absolute miserable place to hold a convention. Nancy and I used to go there a lot. The licensing show used to be held there before they moved it to Vegas in 2009, and now it's home to New York Comic Con. Interesting thing about this building, it was designed by master architect I.M. Pei, who did a wonderful job on that glass pyramid outside of the Louvre, and not to mention the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. That said, Dan, I'm convinced that I.M. Pei had never actually been to a convention center before designing the Javits Center, because it's terribly laid out, it's hard to get around, and never mind that when Hurricane Sandy happened back in October of 2012, the storm surge that was caused by that event sent a foot of contaminated water from the Hudson into the first floor of this convention center. So since then, the Jacob Javits Center has this unique lingering aroma that I call Ode to Black Mold. Long story short, not my favorite place on the planet, but a crazy amount of Marvel-related news came out of the Javits over the past 3 days, and you've been kind enough to gather it as it's been coming in. And Mr. Graney and I will be discussing that at length on today's show. But before we do that, we have to acknowledge Marvelous Disney's sponsor, which is unlockmagic.com, where you can get real discounts on Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando tickets, sometimes upwards of 12%. And just so you know, Unlock Magic is run by the exact same team that runs the DVC rental store and the DVC resale market. So just pick your dates and then grab your tickets for example, an after-hour hard ticket event like Mickey's Very Merry, which begins on the 7th of next month, and is run on select nights, and likewise Jollywood Nights, that begins at Disney's Hollywood Studios on the 8th, and again, runs on select nights. But unlockmagic.com, get your theme park tickets, and then tell them, well, this time around it was Dan and Jim who sent you. So, anyway, Mr. Graney, before we get to this week's news, as Len Testa likes to say over on the Disney Dish, that every show should begin with a hearty round of self-congratulations. So, and I just want to remind folks that as we were closing up the inaugural episode of this reboot of Marvelous Disney, Mr. Graney made a prediction that now that James Gunn was the co-head of DC Studios over at Warner's, that we were ever so closer to an MCU-DCU crossover event. And then after again, what I love about this, on the heels of that, the season 2 finale of Peacemaker drops on HBO Max on Thursday the 9th. And James Gunn does an interview where he reveals that what Dan had predicted had almost come to pass. And did you see this at all? Do you see the...
Oh, Jim! Hold on. I kind of hurt my arm, patting myself on the back here. I did. Okay. I did see this.
Okay. Well, for those of you who missed this, Mr. Gunn had wanted Peacemaker when he was stuck in the quantum unfolding chamber to open a door to one of the many dimensions that could be accessible from this place. And well, do you want to describe what the Peacemaker, or who the Peacemaker was supposed to find when he opened a door?
Yes, the one and only Ryan Reynolds Deadpool.
And this is specifically what Gunn said at a virtual press conference, again, after the fact when the Peacemaker finale season 2 dropped. He said, I wanted him to open the door and see Deadpool in a room, and I actually talked to Ryan Reynolds about this idea, and he really wanted to do it. But that said, we would have had to jump through some pretty big hoops in order to make this crossover happen. So how cool is that, Dan? Mm-hmm. The thing you put out in the ether there, James Gunn was already thinking about.
Yeah, and that means that there are some hoops, which means there is a chance.
There is. Now, that said, I wanted myself to get a sense of what it would actually be like if a DC character of today were to interact with Ryan Reynolds' version of the Merc with the Mouth. So, reached out to Midtown Comics, ordered myself a copy of issue number 1 of Deadpool Batman, which Dan was nice enough to let me know was in the works. That actually hit the spinner racks at your local comic store back on September 17th. So have you seen this yet, Dan? The what is it? The Dead of the Night? And that's Knight night, folks.
Yes. Okay. Yes, and it is. That was the first one in what is considered a series.
Yeah,
a limited series.
Now, written by Zeb Wells, and I got to say, it really does hit all of the right notes. It's everything you would kind of hope that a mashup between Batman and Deadpool would be, and it starts with, billionaire Bruce Wayne brooding at night, and then Deadpool bursts in through a window at stately Wayne Manor, and then it all just goes the way you want, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's perfect.
Yeah, well, and again, we don't do spoilers here on the show, but we're just going to do sort of a quick run through with what this story in this limited series did. But Deadpool's in town working for another client, and he's dropped by Wayne Manor because he's looking to double dip, which is why Deadpool actually turns to Mr. Wayne and says, "Don't you have a business associate you need silenced?" And to which Bruce replies, "I'm not that kind of billionaire." So, and then Deadpool eventually reveals that who he's in Gotham City to capture is Batman. And this is when a bat signal appears in the sky. And so both Bruce and Deadpool eventually wind up on that rooftop with Commissioner Gordon. Well, what I love here is it's clear that Commissioner Gordon, just like Batman, thinks that Deadpool's kind of a moron. But then the Joker enters the equation. So again, we don't want to spoil anything here, but it's what's great about this is it's a story that's authentically set in the world of Batman, but at the same time, Deadpool is the same exact smartass that we've all come to know and love from the Ryan Reynolds movies. And story is definitely got some stakes, and it's got some big laughs, well worth chasing down. Though, speaking of movies, when we get back from this break, Dan's going to talk about something that the Russo brothers posted online recently that perhaps gives us a clue as to what we're going to see in 2026 and 2027 in those Avengers movies. But first, this
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Your boss is going off at you for missing a deadline and you swear the clock just moved backwards. Suddenly, you remember the pack of Tic Tacs on your desk. Now you're riding horseback on the beach, the smell of citrus in the air. And what's this? Your boss is sitting behind you, breathing heavenly fresh mint? Refresh your mouth and mind and share your good vibes with Tic Tac.
Purina believes no one should have to make the impossible choice between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Through the Purple Leash Project, Purina is helping create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
And we're back. So, all right, Dan, talk to us about what the Russo brothers did within the last 10 days.
On September 30th. Now, I don't know if you saw this, but, let's just say they broke the internet again. Just as they did in 2018, they posted a black and white production photo where it's basically a behind the scenes shot. And there's a lot of, there's some scaffolding and some lighting and cables. And it's nothing specific to the film itself. But just as they did with Endgame, they just gave the quote, "Look hard." Now, the last time, people looked at the photo and everybody tried to decode it and everybody went on a crypto hunt. And, some people said, it says, and some people guessed that it said Endgame. Now, the Russo brothers never confirmed anything on what they did the first time. And if you look at the old one, I mean, it's like, well, that looks like an E. But the thing is, once you start tracing shadows and stuff, you can kind of, it's like looking at clouds. It's like, well, I mean, it's subjective. But they did it again. And they posted something, and there's, we see a big green screen or blue screen in the background. We don't know. It's black and white. But there's been a lot of speculation, and it's been kind of fun to watch all the different reactions on this wild goose chase. And we don't expect them to ever confirm anything. But I wanted to share some of the stuff I found.
Okay. Please do.
Now, the first one, and it is a big one, it came up a lot, is that a lot of people, probably because it's the most prominent, because there's a big, it looks like a reflective card over in the front left corner on the photo, and it looks like an A, and then there's something that looks like a V, and then over in the scaffolding, on the right side of the photo, well, you see, an X shape. So a lot of people are suggesting that this, has AVX, which could be pointing to Avengers versus X-Men. Now, does this mean like there's a title change to come? That would be huge. That would be very unexpected because, as far as we all know, it's Avengers Doomsday. And that was already changed from before.
That it was.
The before times. So, there's some traction behind that idea.
Okay.
Some other ones that came out, it spelled the word doom, which is kind of underwhelming because we all know that Dr. Doom is in the movie. So, it could, but I don't know that they'd go through the effort to do that. Some other intrepid, hunters found the word. Again, they're tracing it, but they traced the word Wanda in the shadows, which it could be something that'd be a little bit more exciting and something unexpected. So maybe that's in there.
See,
it's hard to say.
This is the thing. I looked at this photo and it reminded me of going to the mall, to the magic painting store, and I would stare and I would stare and I would never see the 3D sailboat or the unicorn. And so, I appreciate you doing all of the heavy lifting here, but okay, now tell me, when will we know for sure what any of this is?
Okay, well, some people are speculating that this teases when we'll see a trailer. And there's been a lot of talk, and it's a big upcoming release, is that it's tied to Avatar, Fire and Ash. Now, if it spells Avatar, I think that would be a bit unusual for them to, I was like, I don't know that the Russo brothers are going to use this moment to promote another movie. And they don't really need to, because once word gets out that there's a trailer coming, people will be excited about it.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. But I look, you and I both know Disney, and I would not put it past them in order to artificially juice the box office of the opening weekend of Avatar: Fire and Ash to put a Doomsday trailer out in front of that James Cameron film.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, they'll definitely stack the deck with something there. Another clip or another version of what this might say that I saw was on the new Rockstar's channel, and they said it showed Wolverine's claws highlighted in the scaffolding. Well, I mean, scaffolding's metal, and there's a light, and there's some straight lines. So maybe it's that. It's hard to say. And then the latest one that got people all in a tizzy is that if you look in the right hand or in the left hand side, it's actually the outline of Galactus's helmet, which again feels like a bit of a reach.
Yeah,
maybe.
And more to the point, I mean, not to belabor the obvious here, but we just saw Galactus in our, Fantastic Four First Steps film. Likewise, we just saw Wolverine, relatively recently in Deadpool Wolverine. I mean, these are, and more to the point, we have literally saw Doctor Doom, in the end credit scene. And more to the point, we've been told this is the name of the movie. So none of this is, we're kind of in Zapruder film country at this point. All right.
Exactly. So, I mean, that leaves us, like, if we were to look at all of those possibilities, AVX, which is very obviously there. I mean, you don't have to be the best detective to see those, but AVX is a real thing. There's the Avengers versus X-Men comic from 2012 from Bendis and Hickman. It did center on Phoenix Force and Hope Summers and a clash between Cyclops and Captain America. We do know from the chair trailer, the long teaser when they went and unloaded those chairs for everybody, that a lot of the original Fox X-Men are going to be in this movie. So is Avengers versus X-Men something that's going to happen within the setting of the movie? Oh, pretty strong possibility. I mean, certainly there's going to be some disagreements. That wouldn't be surprising. Now, do they change the name of the movie? I don't know. That's something that maybe we'll see.
Okay. But, again, remembering how much fun it was to watch, what is it, the battle at the Leipzig airport in, Winter Soldier, and the notion of then to watch the team come together for Infinity War and Endgame. I mean, it gives them some place to go. Seriously, do you think this is part of the great grand scheme of things at Marvel Studios these days? Just sort of keep them guessing, keep them face down in social media, keep them excited right until this thing opens.
Well, I mean, there's some interesting timing. This thing popped. It popped up not too long after some other conversations were happening within and around Disney. So, was it something like, don't look over there, look over here? Maybe. It doesn't. It aligns with the timing of that previous photo that they posted. And again, yes, keep them guessing. Although this is different because we didn't know the name of the last movie. We know the name of this movie. So unless
that is an excellent point. Yes. Okay.
So, right.
Okay.
Because Endgame, we didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
This time it's called Doomsday.
Mm-hmm.
So, but would they tease a name change? I don't know.
Okay.
So, what we do know is they probably won't tell us.
Okay. Well, all right. Moving on to our next story here. Again, Marvel movie related. We just had a previously announced Marvel movie for the summer of 2027. Disney pulled it off the schedule and replaced it with The Simpsons. What are your thoughts here? Again, if we're taking a 30,000-foot view, what's our grand strategy?
Well, I mean, one thing we do know from looking at, if we go back years of when they would pull up that master slide, usually at Comic-Con, usually in Hall H, Kevin Feige would stand there and they'd have this huge slide with all of these properties in a timeline. We know that has never stayed the same.
No.
Now, is this there's a couple things that could be happening here. One, they could have been, we do know that there's been some shifting of the dates of the Avengers movies. We know that has happened.
Okay.
We also know that in the past, they have held dates that basically are sort of like kind of putting a flag in the sand to kind of keep anybody else away from it. Don't come around, release your movie around this time because we're going to be there.
Okay.
Now, this is a little bit different because we also know that, really, it was just a year ago, Bob Iger, he announced that they're going to decrease volume. Marvel was going to dial it down and do, a max 2 to 3 theatrical releases per year.
And it's also worth noting here that in that same window of time, we saw, the Marvel limited series for Disney Plus kind of get throttled back as well, right? And again, the intention here was to make these things special again. Was that the thinking?
Yeah, there's been some dialogue about that. There's been basically just the idea of quality over quantity. There was a time there where things were just churning out. I do think it is an intentional pause. I don't think there's anything about. I don't think there's any panic as far as this shift. But we do know that this movie would have released between 2 Avengers movies. December 2026 for Doomsday, and then Secret Wars 2027. So, that does mean that there's really no theatrical Marvel movie between those 2 movies. So that's a full year.
Yeah,
that we're not getting a Marvel movie in the theater.
My fear is one hell of a cliffhanger. Just sort of like, come back in a year. Now, Dan has actually done something very cool here because remember, there was going to be a Marvel movie coming out in July of 2027. And what Dan has done is worked his trap line and gotten us all of the possible films that might have gone into that slot. And it's, it's one hell of a menu. Do you want to walk the nice folks through it?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, the woulda, coulda, shouldas.
There we go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Black Panther 3. Now there's still a lot of rumors about this, but we know that it's happening. Ryan Coogler is expected and rumored to return. And Denzel Washington has said some stuff in the past that maybe Disney wouldn't want him to say, but it's also Denzel, so who's going to tell him no?
Sure.
Another one that I think has been, it kind of has a lot of people wondering and wondering what took you so long, would be Shang-Chi 2. Now, this would bring back Destin Daniel Cretton and Simu Liu. That is what. Now, of course, Destin Daniel Cretton is also a very, very busy guy right now.
Is, yes, absolutely. And just a quick aside here, I have to say, getting to see Shang-Chi again in action in the Marvel Zombies limited series, and more to the effect having Simu Liu back voicing the character. I mean, they added a lot of fun. Not to mention Awkwafina back as Katie, but this is one I'm looking forward to myself.
Yeah, they actually provided, I think, some of the greatest levity
they did
to that series. And it reminded people, just like you, and same with me, is like, that was a fun movie. It stuck the landing, and that's a character that needs to come back pronto. And I think, obviously, we're going to see that character in the Avengers movies. Another one would be the X-Men reboot that was talked about there for a while. Now, I can understand why that's not going to be in its place, because we've got a lot going on with the X-Men, and this is going to be Jake Schreier, who was basically handed the reins after his handling of Thunderbolts. He showed everybody he can handle a large cast with a lot of characters and still, have enough pathos and drama, and everybody still has their moment. So they're like, yeah, we're going to have you do that, but we're going to put that away. Now, here's one that was kind of surprising, but it's still out there. Although it's on the front burner, or went from the front burner to the back burner, I should say. And that's Armor Wars, which, was it a series at one point, and then it was going to be a movie, and it still exists. This is going to be the Don Cheadle vehicle.
There we go.
So, and I know he was excited about it, but that's one. Aside from the fact that, especially with, we don't know his character Rhodey.
There we go.
At what point was he an alien? If you watched Secret Invasion, I did.
Yeah. So, that's the Skrull situation. There we go.
Yeah. I mean, although the Skrulls, hey, we saw them in Marvel Zombies. So, briefly, but they were there.
There we go.
And then finally, there's a couple here. Doctor Strange 3, which, they left us hanging, with Charlize Theron and Doctor Strange with his new third eye, just standing around on the street with a tear, or Scarlett Johansson's super secret Marvel movie, which we don't know what that is.
Well, and now to further complicate that situation, remember, Scarlett is the one on the heels of the whole very public Bob Chapek brawl, who got it was kind of a make good from Disney. It's like, hi, you want to make a movie version of Tower of Terror? We're really sorry about Bob. But now, so in addition to Tower of Terror movie, which he's admitted they're having some trouble with the script, and again, the super secret Marvel project, just last week we learned that Disney's live action version of Tangled, which had been temporarily shut down when Snow White didn't do the business this March, is now not only back on, but they're supposedly talking with Johansson to play Mother Gothel. So it's like, oh, she gets to be a Disney villain. So you got to wonder which of these three actually goes forward first. And then of course, there's one more film in the pile here, barely worth mentioning. Yeah, go ahead.
Blade. It makes me sad. Blade is, We're hoping. It's got to happen. We want to see it.
No, especially after Marvel Zombies and with I get that wasn't Mahershala doing the voice, but it was still it was a great take on the character, coupled with that aspect of Moon Knight that got folded in the Egyptian god of the dead, or it was like, I do want Khonshu. Yeah. There we go. So long story short, have we officially finished Phase 6 at this point and are rolling into 7, or what's going on here?
Well, they're definitely reordering Phase 7. Phase 6 is it ending on a whimper? It does feel like this is maybe a quiet reboot. And I'll say, Kevin Feige just recently was talking about the idea of absence making the heart grow fonder. So, there's a couple things happening. We know that there's been the conversation of superhero fatigue. We also know there was a lot of stuff that came out, especially at the beginning, and people felt like they had to do homework. But we've seen them turning that. Fantastic Four is a prime example. It's like you can go in, you can see that movie and not worry about anything before that. And Disney's also showing some, they're putting the Simpsons there. We're seeing that they're showing some confidence in their other franchises. And we can't forget, these are two huge Marvel movies with expected to be much, much bigger from a cast standpoint and a story standpoint than Endgame. So TBD, what could it have been?
Yeah. Now, not to further muddy the water here, but the wild card in this whole situation is you got to remember, Disney announced back in October of 2024 that Bob Iger would be ending his second run as the company's CEO in late 2026. And more to the point, Disney was quite clear that the company would be announcing Iger's successor in early 2026, which, Dan, that's less than 6 months away now. And again, I know this is Disney's current plan when it comes to Marvel Studios, but what happens if the company's next CEO doesn't agree with the way Iger, has told Kevin Feige this is how it should be? And you were mentioning The Simpsons just a second ago. And what's worth noting here is that the theme park rights to The Simpsons reportedly revert to the Walt Disney Company in the spring of 2028. So if you take that into account and you look at the timeline, The Simpsons Movie 2 arrives in theaters July of 2027. It then goes on Disney Plus in the fall of that same year, late fall, early winter 2027. And, there's a lot of folks who are looking at that and it's like, wow, this is Disney literally pulling the alpha male, on Universal. It's like Simpsons is Disney property. So, again, it's especially interesting now to sort of look at what's being released when in regards to the MCU, especially when you throw on the pile here Vision Quest. Can you share what you found out from the Cosmic Circus in an inverse about this limited series?
Yes, and the first thing that came to mind when I was reading all of this and looking at everything is a phrase from All the President's Men: "Follow the money." Except for in this case, it's follow the timeline or the air date. So Cosmic Circus and Inverse both suggested that Vision Quest could be 2026's most important Marvel title. Now you got to look at when they're planning on airing. Because for a while there, they didn't have a time. They knew they were making it, and they did make it, but they didn't know when it was going to be on the schedule. And now suddenly it's going to be positioned between Spider-Man: Brand New Day and Avengers: Doomsday. Spider-Man's coming out July 21st.
There we go. And what is it? Avengers Doomsday is what, a week before Christmas of that year, or the 18th. So,
That's right.
Okay, all we have, or at least all I was able to chase down prior to us recording tonight is what? There's 8 episodes of this limited series, which will drop on Disney Plus. But this has been a while coming, hasn't it?
Oh, this has been, they've been working on this since 2022. I mean, this was initially developed as a pure WandaVision spinoff under head writer Jack Schaefer. She left the project to focus on Agatha all along. Terry Matalas, who worked on Star Trek Picard, came in and redeveloped the series and served as the showrunner. Now, what's ironic here is Matalas has compared Vision's journey to Spock's in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. Now, if you remember that, that's the one where, well, it's the Earth one. So it was, Spock as he's having memories and he's not fully feeling like they are his own. And then they save some whales. Spoiler. It's the whale movie.
Okay, there we go. All right.
Yeah. It's also, I mean, a lot of people love that movie. I'm a huge fan. It was because it shows them in what was then modern times and dealing, with, getting around San Francisco, trying to understand. They don't have, they come from way in the future. They don't use money, all of this stuff. So now we're looking at this Vision Quest. So we're bringing that sentiment, that sort of approach to Vision Quest. This began in March 2025. It wrapped in July 2025. So, like I said, though, there was never a time set for release, but it does seem awfully strategic in its proximity to Doomsday. So, a lot came out, and there was actually Variety just ran a story a little bit ago. They did show some clips. I will have to say it felt a little spoilery, and I'm kind of bummed that I even knew as much as I did based on that. But I will just say that this is suggesting it's really not just an end to the trilogy, which started with WandaVision and continued with Agatha all along. But it also seems to be pointing to bringing an emotional narrative and bridge to Doomsday while dealing with the Maximoff family. I will say that, and I am going to butcher this, Rard Malika is going to play a character named Thomas Shepard. The question is, could this be Tommy Maximoff? Now, if you saw Agatha...
Yes. Yeah.
We saw Agatha all along, a big plot point of that show was realizing that the young character was Billy Maximoff. Sort of the this Earth's manifestation of the Billy character from Wanda's fabricated reality in WandaVision. So, do we now see White Vision, who is coping with... he's going to have these memories. They're not his memories. They're Red Vision's memories. But he has all of this, and he's trying to find his place. And there's the sense that he's going to... They transition this a little bit from being purely about that trilogy to, like I said, they're putting this in a spot that's really right there in between two pretty huge MCU film releases. So are we going to not only find out what happened to Wanda, but is this setting up the return of Wanda? That's the question.
Well, face it, those of us who actually watch Multiverse of Madness and how she was taken out, so to speak. Yeah, I mean that's definitely a card that needs to be turned over. So, well, no, all right. Again, now you got me excited going into gotta watch Vision Quest headed into Doomsday. And again, I hate to say this, Sounds like I have to do some homework before I get my ticket to Doomsday.
It sounds like there's some homework. It doesn't sound like the level of homework that we had when Disney Plus first came out.
Mm-hmm. All true. Now, speaking of which, on the Disney Plus side, which has a lot of Marvel projects, things are definitely getting interesting, and we heard a lot of stuff coming out of New York Comic Con this past weekend, and Dan and I will get to that in a moment. But first, this
episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton. For this day.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso and Samra Origins by the Weekend Coffee Collection.
Introducing Samra Origins. My collaboration with Nespresso is a connection to my roots, to my mother, Samra. Coffee that hits the right notes. It transports you. Crafted with unique notes and bold, soaring flavors. Experience a taste that moves you. Nespresso and Samra Origins.
Discover more at Nespresso.com.
And we're back. And as I mentioned earlier on today's show, a lot of news coming out of the Javits Center, but without that black mold smell. For example, today, the trades were announcing, again, Sunday afternoon, just before Dan and I began recording, second season of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man will debut on Disney Plus, fall of 2026. And what was interesting about this was that folks who were in the room, and as I understand it, this was revealed at the Up Next from Marvel TV and Marvel Animation panel, which was held in the Empire Stage on Saturday. But folks in the room got to see the trailer for season 2. And I guess we learned that, Venom's definitely coming back. And but on the other hand, another thing we got to see in that room, and Dan, you chased down all this info on it. There's Wonder Man. We got our trailer, right?
Yeah, that's right. We got a teaser and then a fuller trailer. And I don't know if you happen to watch it, Jim, but it is definitely it has the sense of being very meta. And they allude to a little bit. They don't say the word superhero fatigue, but they certainly allude to the idea of like why would somebody make another superhero movie? And the whole point of this, if you don't know, is that this is about this is the story, the character of Wonder Man. There was a superhero series called a movie series called Wonder Man, and Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is somebody who watched Wonder Man as a kid, so he's his favorite character, and he feels like he's born to play this role. And there's even a sense that it has this like when I say meta, it does have this feeling that it's it's going to be a little inside baseball, but it definitely has a different flavor of a lot of the MCU TV releases that we've seen. Now, it should be noted that this was shifted to January 2026, but I don't think there's anything to read in that.
Well, no. In fact, they flat out said in the past week or so that this was done to avoid, and I know this is a weird phrase, folks, but in the television space, it's called the Christmas clutter. The notion of this is a time of year when, well, there's a billion Hallmark movies, holiday specials, you're just up against a lot of stuff. Whereas in January, the world does in fact quiet down a little bit. And if, Wonder Man were looking to stand out, stepping out of that very busy space between Thanksgiving and Christmas to January, and it actually may be a smart play.
Yeah, they actually said they didn't want to compete with everybody watching Elf.
I have at least 14 screenings of that scheduled to watch myself. I love me some Edward Asner as Santa. So,
he's the best.
There we go.
So again, now Abdul Mateen, he stars as Simon Williams. He's a working actor, and he's going to be somebody who's like, we watch his struggles. He's trying to get the role. He's got an agent. He's like, you gotta let me in. I gotta read for this. But then who else do we see in the trailer but Trevor Slattery? Yeah. That's right. Ben Kingsley, Sir Ben Kingsley, back again. And what is got to be the Marvel's longest running redemption arc.
Well, you're not wrong, but again, he so clearly has fun with this role.
He does have fun, and honestly, how they've evolved the character from being just absolutely menacing in Iron Man 3 to then being this a bit of a buffoon, and then we had Hail to the King, we had the short, the one shot, and then we saw him in Shang-Chi. So they keep bringing that character back, and they, I think they soften his edges, and at this point, we can all, he's definitely on the side of good versus ability, although he's a bit silly, but he seems to be, a heavy part of this new series. Again, this is created by Destin Daniel Cretton and Andrew Guest, who brought us Hawkeye. And there were discussed, obviously it's because it's very top of mind, especially with the recent Emmy wins, that there's discussion that this was resembling or maybe close to the Studio from Seth Rogen, but it feels a little bit closer to some of Cretton's earlier work, especially one called Short Term 12, which was a very sincere and earnest and not cynical. Yeah. And Winterbaum is quoted as saying, "It's one of my favorite things I've ever been a part of at the studio."
Okay.
So,
well, all right.
I think we're in for a bit of a treat. It definitely, I will say, one thing that they don't show in the trailer, there's nothing as far as superheroes at all. No heroic acts, no powers. We didn't see anything. That doesn't mean it's not there. But we didn't see it.
Okay.
So they're setting the tone.
All right. Now, in addition, we heard coming out of New York Comic Con a bit more about season 2 of Daredevil Born Again. In fact, did you get to see the image of Matt in his black Daredevil suit? Okay.
I was quite excited. Now after we saw Matt's and we saw they showed it again in pieces, but after seeing Matt's suit in his California adventure on She-Hulk, which was the gold tinted suit. We see his new suit, and it is black, although it's lit. So I don't know if it's black with red highlights or if it's just lit with a red light. It was hard to tell, but it looks phenomenal.
Okay. But so we know Charlie Cox is coming back, and did they? Now they have officially confirmed Christine Ritter, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's definitely confirmed. She was there, so it wasn't like she just happened to be nearby. She was actually at Comic-Con. Okay. So yes, Jessica Jones is officially going to be part of this, and but there's also somebody else who's coming in, and that's Matthew Lillard. Shaggy is going to be the new antagonist. We just know him as Mr. Charles. Sounds very fancy, but apparently they're saying he's a high-level power broker challenging Kingpin.
Woof. Okay.
Yes.
That's not going to end well. No. And speaking of things ending, okay. And again, I'm sorry, folks, if you haven't watched Daredevil Born Again yet, this series actually starts off with us losing Foggy Nelson. So, which is why I got to say, Dan, I'm confused by this news about Eldon Henson.
I'm going to just go, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going with flashback.
Okay.
I don't know how else. The Foggy, his exit seemed pretty final.
Yeah, yeah. Underlined, circled, and indented. Yes, He so to have him back. Again, I think you're not wrong about the flashbacks thing, but can you talk a bit about what season 2 is supposed to be like tonally?
Yeah, the Winterbomb actually called it a palace intrigue style story, or like a Game of Thrones in New York City. So, especially with the addition of Matthew Lillard as Mr. Charles, being somebody who's going to be a protagonist to Kingpin, I think that I think to me it's sort of like we're watching a third party come in and be a power player against Kingpin.
Now, what strikes me about this, the other thing that adds an interesting layer to this is supposed to be in direct continuity with the new Spider-Man movie, Brand New Day.
Yeah, that's right. Now, initially there was some allusions to they were like, they didn't want to. They were keeping the TV show and the movie universe. They're connected, but not tightly wound together. This when Winterbomb, to quote him, it very much exists in the same world, and it is important.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. All right, color me intrigued, especially knowing that, in fact, we talked about this on the last show, that season 3 of Daredevil Born Again has already been greenlit. So, this story is going places, and, kind of hard to predict where that might be, especially with this Spider-Man Brand New Day element. So,
That's right.
Anyway, speaking of shows that got a season 2, also coming out of New York Comic Con, news about X-Men 97. Do you want to tell the class about what you learned about this?
Sure thing. Now, one thing they said is the full creative team returning, sort of, still under guidance of the X-Men, the animated series creators, Eric and Julia Lewald and Larry Houston. So that's awesome to kind of maintain that tie to the series that this clearly is a direct inspiration to this. But it will follow season 1's Apocalypse arrival cliffhanger, and he is the character of Apocalypse is expected to be a major player this year. Winterbomb did deny a mass death rumor that was out there, but it mentioned that there are the same stakes as season 1, and that mortality is on the table. And then Ross Marquand had previously teased emotional fallout and high stakes. Plus, again, season 3 announced at Comic-Con. So now we have our second Marvel series on Disney with a third season.
Now, worth noting here, folks, that this revival of the classic animated series first got discussed back in June of 2019 and then formally got announced in November of 2021. And I bring that up because back then, Victoria Alonso was the president of physical and post-production at Marvel Studios, likewise handled visual effects and animation production, which was why, she'd be in the mix here for X-Men 97. So again, definitely in the room, when this happened, to steal a line from Hamilton. And it wasn't all that long ago that Victoria was one of the most powerful Latinas in all of Hollywood. By the way, she started at Marvel in 2007, and you want to talk about timing, Dan. I mean, she was literally there when the first MCU movie, Iron Man, went out into theaters in April of 2008. So she was in on the ground floor, which is why in June of 2002, when we learned that Alonzo's memoir, Possibility is Your Superpower, was coming, that this book was announced with much fanfare, was supposed to be out in May of 2023, was going to be available in English and Spanish, and more to the point, proceeds from the sale of the book were going to benefit St. Jude, and so this was a big deal, and Alonzo was going to be in the spotlight. But then, while all this conversation is going on, June of 2022, production of The Marvels, again, big female empowerment superhero film, that wraps. And then in August of that same year, 2022, The Marvels goes and does 4 weeks of reshoots. And there are very loud whispers at this time. Do you remember this, Dan, about how Marvel's system was broken, that things were being rushed into production because of pressures from Disney Plus, and then people were trying to fix all of this stuff in post. And then November 2022, Bob Iger comes back to Disney as CEO, and it's 2 months later that in January of 2003, Agatha All Along goes into production, and we get to hear the same thing, that a great idea, very strong cast. But, they rushed. They weren't ready. And mind you, production does get halted. But let's be honest here, Dan, the writer's strike that year, also was at play here. But here's the thing. March of 2023, Victoria is fired from Marvel.
Now there was a lot of conversation about. Well, there's a lot of conversation, but there's actually no conversation officially. But there was the idea that maybe this was due to breach of contract for work on an Amazon distributed film called Argentina, 1985. Now, her lawyer had argued that she was punished for refusing what was called reprehensible demands.
Right.
And of course, this did spark headlines about legal disputes and NDAs and Marvel's treatment of execs. And, it's sort of like there's been a lot of dialogue back and forth about this. On one hand, it's like there's all this stuff that, she was responsible for and driving. But the other, and when you mention the Marvels, you had the Marvels coming out, and then you had Quantumania coming out.
Yes.
And that really, the VFX, and honestly, MODOK really got raked over the coals.
It did.
Both of those movies, unfortunately, the conversations around those movies affected how people looked at those movies, because it's sort of like if you take those things out of the conversation, the movies are not bad movies.
No, they're not.
But they were regarded as big misses.
Yeah, and there became a lot of conversation about the culture at Marvel Studios. And again, also worth noting here, in fact, Dan and I both got copies of Alonzo's memoir. And Dan, what I loved was your observation, after you read the book, you read it and said it read like a lot of the really good, juicy stuff got cut out.
It seemed like there were pages missing. And it's like, I didn't want Inside Edition or something like that, but I was like, I feel like were the pages, am I missing a chapter? It seems like something's missing.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because, I have some personal experience with this. There was a book, Window on Main Street, and this was written by Van France. He was one of, Walt himself hired Van to work at Disneyland prior to the park opening, and he was the guy who set up Disneyland University. Doomsday, which taught, Disney cast members, the whole, the idea of we work while others play. And, they're not our customers, they're our guests. And you get the whole idea. But he writes this amazing book about the early days of Disneyland. And as a courtesy, he sends it to his former assistant, now the president of Disney Parks Worldwide, Dick Nunes. And, the thinking was, maybe Dick will write the introduction to the book. And Dick actually comes back and says, all right, here's the thing. You're going to have to cut 100 pages out of this thing. And they're, it's like, no, it's about the early days of Disneyland. He says, look, you're going to cut 100 pages out of this thing, or I'm not going to allow it to be sold in the parks. And so I got to tell you, a lot of really good behind-the-scenes stories from the early days of Disneyland ended up being tossed out of this book. And I know this for a fact because the book was published up here in New Hampshire by Storyboard, the Art of Laughter Press. And this was back in the early 90s. And Steve Fayette, the publisher of the book, he slipped me a copy of Van's original full manuscript, 300 pages long and full of all of these amazing stories. And Steve was like, if these stories just happen to get out at some point in the future, who am I to say? So that's the thing. And look, I'm not going to lie, folks. I read Alonzo's memoir after, he said that. And again, you read it and it's just sort of like, wow, that's, there's an absence of substance, if that's a way to describe a book. And especially when you consider how this was promoted back in June of 2022 about, the most powerful Latina in Hollywood and how she rose up, within the Marvel organization. And we're going to take you behind the scenes on some of the biggest movies in Hollywood history. And it's like, there's and again, I think you pointed out she did a lot of amazing things at Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
During her 15 years there.
Oh my gosh. She advocated for women, LGBTQ, Latinx representation in Marvel projects. But, on the flip side of that, there's the flip side. There was the reports of the toxic VFX environment that happened on her watch. And then even artists claiming, she fostered fear and micromanagement. And it's one of those things where it's like, instead of being, it has to be an either or situation. It might be both.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But I just want to stress here that she was a part of what made Marvel such a huge success. But at the same time, when it got as big as it did in the late 2010s, early 2020s, and let's remember that's on the back of Disney Plus needs stuff, and now we're in a world where Marvel needs to maybe making 4 movies a year, and maybe that was just too many plates to spin. But anyway, folks, again, that book's name is Possibility is Your Superpower. Tell you what, if you want to give it a read and then let Dan and I know what you thought of the book, that would be great. And we can discuss that on the next episode of Marvelous Disney. But with that, we now close the second episode of this reboot of Marvelous Disney. And Dan, if the nice folks out there want to hear even more of you, your insights, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me, formerly from the show Real Spoilers, the podcast, and check them out. They're a great bunch of guys. And currently you can also watch me on The Hububbery, which is a show on YouTube. That's HUBBUBBERY. If you want to email me, I'm Dan at thehububbery.com or X and Facebook. Just look up The Hububbery. you'll find me.
Okay, and you always are covering some of my favorite films from the 70s and 80s. So what's on the plate for you and her this week?
Oh my gosh! Well, we are working through another episode of the B-side, which is where we give the B actors their due. We recently did Tom Atkins, and if you don't know who Tom Atkins is, all you got to do is watch the episode. And you'll go, "Oh, that guy."
There we go. Mustache.
Our next one is a mustache, exactly. And our next one will be someone. Well, let's just say probably the greatest chin in Hollywood right now.
Oh, Bruce? No, not Bruce.
No, I think you might have been right there. That's coming up.
Okay, cool. Oh, well, and we also have a couple of podcasts here at Jimmy Media. These include Disney Dish with Len Testa, Fine Tuning, that's the animation news podcast I do with Drew Taylor. We also have the Epic Universal podcast that I do with Eric Hersey, who does such a great job of producing so many of the shows here at Jimmy Media. And then, of course, I have I Want That Too, which is the Disney merch podcast I do with Eric's lovely bride, Lauren. And also want to remind you folks about Disney Unpack. That's the video series that Len and I do for Patreon with veteran Imagineer Jim Schul. One quick favor to ask folks as we run for the curtain here. If you get out over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review Marvel Us Disney, that'll help let folks know that this podcast is back. Beyond that, if you got any Marvel-related topics that you'd like Dan and I to discuss on future installments of this series, please send them along. And, Mr. Graney and I are already at work on episode 3 because, again, we cut stories out of this show to put them in that show. So come back in 2 weeks so you can hear what those are. And let's see. Beyond that, on behalf of Dan, I want to thank you for listening to this episode of Marvelous Disney, and we will be back soon.